President Biden said, "I want to thank our partners in the region and particularly Qatar." The leader of Hamas lives in Qatar. So why is President Biden thanking them for anything?
Oh, geez, Peter. Let's take a step back here and look at this.
Qatar was they are a terrorist group that killed Americans and kidnapped Americans within the last month.
Peter, Qatar has been helpful in getting those Americans out. I'm sure you would agree with me, and everybody at your network would agree, that getting American hostages out is a good thing. And Qatar was a key player in that regard.
All right, so John Kirby clearly does not agree with the tone or the question from Peter Doocy, but my next guest does, that it's a legitimate concern that Qatar isn't really a mediator or a savior here. They're anything but. The North Dakota governor and presidential candidate Doug Burgum with us now. Governor, very good to have you. So you share this distrust of Qatar and whether their intentions are all good.
Well, Neil, thanks for having me on. But yes, just because we got open lines of communication with someone and just because they say that the Switzerland of the Middle East doesn't mean they're our ally. When you take a look at the actual track record and say, look, in the last decade, they've pushed over $1.5 billion into Gaza in support of Hamas. It's some estimates that 80% of that's actually gone to the Hamas organization, not to humanitarian or serving the people that are trapped in Gaza. And then you take a look at this hostage. I mean, praising them right now. There's 240 hostages. 4 have been released. We're supposed to praise them for that. And they are housing the leaders of Hamas. And where they're housing them, it's only 20 miles away from our largest air base that we have in the Middle East. And so it is. And of course, they've also been supporting Iran. And this is. But the Biden administration, it really falls on them. It's not just all on Qatar, because if the Biden administration is going to send tens of billions of dollars and lift sanctions on Iran, of course, it's a mixed signal. I mean, who are we supporting? I mean, Biden's basically funding both sides of this war because he's been funding Iran, and Iran is funding Hamas, and then we're friends with Qatar, and Qatar's funding Hamas.
I understand where you're coming from, and no disrespect, but we've had a sort of a nefarious and questionable relationship with Qatar going back many administrations. But having said that, would you not then work with Qatar? They're the best chance you have of getting Americans out of Gaza.
Well, as you say, Neil, they do have a great dependence on us. I mean, the air base is a huge protection of security for them, the U.S. air base, the amount of dollars that our country puts in. If we're actually negotiating from our strengths in this position, then we should be saying, Qatar, hey, do your airways, Qatar Airways, do you want to be flying to the United States? Do you want to have full diplomatic relationships? Do you want to have a full economic relationship with us? Then we need to see something more than 2 Americans come out of this. I mean, we should be escalating the pressure up.
So you're disappointed. You're disappointed in whatever conversations we've had have gotten us. So 2 Americans right now. There's hope that a half a dozen more could follow, but that's not enough to justify even communicating with them.
Well, I think the communication ought to be, hey, we need to see Americans being released, or things are going to change in our relationship. They've had a sweet relationship with us. At the same time, they've been funding Hamas. And now with this attack that Hamas has had on Israel, things have to change. And the Biden administration is acting like it's business as usual. Just because we got their phone number doesn't mean they're our ally in this situation.
Do you support the Israeli aid package that the House backed? It's Israel only, Governor. The Senate has something grander working to provide aid to Ukraine as well. Don't know how that's going to go. Where are you on that?
Well, we need to support our allies. I mean, this is clear, and it doesn't matter where in the world that is. I mean, the Biden administration has basically got a set of energy policies. We've lifted the sanctions on Iran. That's tens of billions of dollars. We've lifted sanctions on Venezuela.
I don't mean to be rude, but it's not what I asked. Would you support the Israel-only aid in the House or widening it to Ukraine, something they're considering in the Senate? The White House wants that, for example. Where are you?
Well, but Neil, you're asking a question, where should the U.S. dollars go? And what I'm saying, if the Biden administration is supporting an aid package where we send our taxpayer dollars to support Israel, but at the same time, we're not enforcing sanctions, which are giving even more money to Iran, then that makes no sense. We got to figure out which side we're funding. We can't be funding both sides. And so you can't separate an aid package from the sanctions, which are driving tens of billions of dollars to our enemies.
So Ukraine, would you aid Ukraine right now in this environment with the priority we're told by many of your colleagues on Israel?
Well, we have the ability. This is not a question of Israel versus Ukraine versus the U.S. southern border. This is a question of, are we going to live in a world of appeasement under the Biden administration where we concede to Russia, we concede to Iran, we concede to China, Taiwan? Is that the world we want to live in? Or is this going to be another American
offense, you
century?
haven't answered my question. I've asked it 3 different ways. Where are you? I understand the bigger issue you rightly raise. But where are you on this? Because many are interpreting that there's a division among Republicans, and it's, by the way, there's a division among Democrats too, on who you prioritize when it comes to immediate aid.
Well, you're asking a question that the Congress is asking itself. I'm not in Congress, but they're asking
well,
like
you
we're
want
in
to
a
be
position
president
of
of the
scarcity.
United States.
I want to be president of the United States, of course. And when I'm your president, we won't have this clarity. We won't be spending trillions of dollars trying to push a green agenda, but then saying we don't have enough money to support our allies and secure the border. We can do all of that, Neil.
Okay.
This is not a trade-off.
All
we
right.
can support our allies right now. If we abandon our allies right now, Americans will be less safe and less prosperous. And the President of the United States, your job is to make America safer, and make America more prosperous.
All
and
right.
the way we do that is we support our allies.
All right, Governor, thank you very much. Governor Doug Burgum.